Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Randall Bell. Welcome back to Core IQ, where we talk about the skills we all need to know, but we often don't learn in school. And that's why we have an expert here, JC Cavitt. Good to see you, man.
Thank you, Dr. Bell.
Okay, so JC, you're a sociologist, you're a grad student, you really study this stuff. I know you do a lot of work with, people in all kinds of walks of life. I mean, anything else you want to share with everyone about your the work that you do?
No, absolutely. We'd love to. So a lot of my work is based in correctional facilities, so juvenile halls, county jails, our state prison systems, and sitting with individuals who have experienced the topic that we're talking about today.
Which is guilt versus shame.
Yeah.
This is one of the most profound, important skills. I think every person on planet Earth needs to understand this. So like all the episodes, there's this handout. It's a PDF. Go to coreiq.com and print it out so you can follow along with what we're talking about. So before we dig into this, JC, I got to tell you something. I was asked to give a speech on Skid Row to homeless kids.
Okay.
But before that, I was up at San Quentin Prison volunteering for the very first time. And I was a little nervous about this upcoming speaking event on Skid Row, because that's serious. And at the end of it, I said to the inmates there, in the minute we call them the Men in Blue in San Quentin, I said, what should I teach these kids on Skid Row so they never end up in prison? What should I teach them? They said, do you know the difference between guilt versus shame? And I didn't know. And they taught me, and it was profound.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. So I generally love this topic. Every person on planet Earth needs to watch this episode. If you don't watch anything else on Core IQ, watch this one. So help us out, JC. Explain the difference between guilt and shame.
So this is a great topic to discuss because I think, like you, many people aren't aware of it, that there is actually a difference between the two. With guilt is usually associated with something that we've done, something that we have regret about doing.
Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all. Not at all. There's healthy guilt, but there's also toxic guilt. So Healthy guilt is something that I may have done something that I know is like, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. Healthy guilt keeps us close to our moral compass. It helps us to abide by societal norms and standards.
Okay.
And so healthy guilt can actually be a beneficial thing, and it prevents us from making the same mistake twice.
Okay, but there's examples of toxic guilt, you call it. What does that look like?
Toxic guilt is when I've done something wrong and I'm unable to move past it. So I'm constantly, even though I know it was wrong, and I'm struggling to just overcome what I've done.
So what I hear you saying is you kind of keep beating yourself up.
Yes.
Over year after year, I did this, I made this stupid mistake in high school, and year after year, I keep beating myself up for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's not right. At some point, you got to forgive yourself and forgive others or whatever.
Yeah, because with the toxic guilt, when that shows up, it impacts us in relationships. That if you're constantly beating yourself up about something that you did in the past, it prevents you from being fully present in the relationships that you have in front of you.
That's a great point. Okay, so we've talked about guilt, but now let's talk about shame. What is shame, and how is that different than guilt?
So toxic guilt actually is a slippery slope into shame.
Okay.
And so shame is when you feel that when you've done something bad, that you are bad.
Okay.
So there's a big difference that we need to make sure that we're clear on. I could have done something bad, but it doesn't intrinsically make me bad.
Okay. So that's what I did, but that's not who I am.
Yes.
Okay. When I was in San Quentin and the gentlemen there were explaining this to me, they said shame can be things where I did nothing wrong at all, but I feel ashamed. The word shame comes from the word ashamed. Can you kind of build on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially in the environments that you're speaking of, San Quentin, which I'm very familiar with, we have a lot of men that have been on the receiving end of some not so great actions by others. And they don't know how to really process that. And because they think it's attached to their self-worth and who they are, it affects their self-worth, their self-esteem, and they have a difficult time shaking it because they think it's a part of their identity.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because the way it was explained to me is shame is stuff like, let's give some examples. Like, my family was poor, or I didn't have a dad, or I didn't have a mom, or I was too short, or I was too tall, or I was too fat, or I was too skinny. Or I have this color of skin and my neighbors have this color of skin. You get into race issues, social status, For me, I wasn't a quick learner in school.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of broke through that eventually, but, the teacher would say stuff and I didn't get it. I didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't understand it. Those are what other examples of shame are there?
I think for me in the settings that I work with, you also have when you're dealing with victims around rape, theft, murder, even being any type of victimization. There's can be a lot of shame associated with that.
Yeah. Okay. So shame can be, this happened to me. I was abused. I was traumatized. Any of those things where the key is guilt. You did something wrong, and shame is you didn't do anything wrong.
So one of the ways I like to think of the two that separates them is when I've done something that I feel guilty about. With time, you may look back at it and laugh.
Okay.
With something that I feel deep shame or ashamed of,
right,
it's never funny.
Right.
No matter how much time passes, because it's attached to your self-worth.
Okay, so shame, guilt, what's kind of the fallout from all this stuff?
Oh, it's a host of problems with shame. Shame is correlated with depression, criminal activities, substance abuse issues, even suicide. Wow. In some cases.
So the drug addictions, the alcohol addictions, all that is a result of people trying to mask the feelings of shame.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think I've got it. I think hopefully everybody else has got it. Guilt is essentially the dividing line is I did something wrong. Shame is I'm ashamed, but I didn't necessarily do anything wrong. But nonetheless, I have a lot of feelings that feel similar to guilt.
Yeah, the difference is I did something wrong and I am wrong.
Okay. So we've kind of covered the definitions of what guilt is and what shame is. That alone can be life-changing. Just understanding that. Let's talk about the do's and the don'ts. Okay? We got guilt, we got shame. What do we don't do and what do we do? Let's start with the don'ts.
So absolutely. So if I'm experiencing shame, one of the things you don't want to do is hold it in.
Okay.
Because what it does is it eats away at your self-worth.
So when I was in San Quentin, the way it was explained to me, it's like a volcano and it builds and builds and builds. The pressure gets higher and higher and higher. And it's like you leave the pot, a lid on the pot, on the boiling water and all this, but that pressure just keeps building. Is that basically what it is? That pressure builds?
Absolutely. It's individuals don't know what to do with that.
Okay.
When something has caused you great shame, it sits there and it just festers and that pressure does build.
It becomes unbearable. Okay. Yeah. So then there's this big red line on a trigger. Okay. What is a trigger?
So a trigger is anything that activates you, that gets you charged. It can make you upset really, really quickly, or it can cause you great fear and panic really quickly. And a trigger can literally be anything depending on that person's history.
Okay, so let's give some examples, like a song, or you tell me a person.
I would say, so being a little personal and vulnerable here. So I grew up very poor. My family didn't have much. So running out of food for me was a trigger. And so I needed to make sure that I knew where the food pantries were, where I could get I'm getting triggered and activated now.
Yeah, that's okay. Man. Can I share one? Where I was
Please.
I think I've shared it with you. When I was 11, I had open heart surgery.
Yeah.
That still when I see a kid in a wheelchair, I can't. I'm feeling the same thing you're feeling. Because when I see a kid in a wheelchair, I have empathy like nobody else can understand. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I can't really relate to your thing, and you probably can't relate to me because you probably never had heart surgery. But we all have our triggers, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're triggered. We've let everything build. What happens?
So then once this thing gets to a point where it has nowhere to go but explode, a lot of times that explosion results in that individual hurting someone else or them harming themselves.
Okay. So they just erupt. It just explodes and all hell breaks loose.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then you end up with, behind bars or some bad place.
The regret. You end up regretting what you've done, which now, interestingly enough, cause guilt.
Yeah.
Which it can feed this cycle of shame, and a person stays on it. Now I feel bad about hurting someone that didn't deserve that. And depending on what you've done, it could cause even more shame.
Okay, I love that. Okay. So ultimately, we're here to learn core IQ skills of what we do want to do that are healthy. Let's talk about that. Okay?
Absolutely.
So
So the first thing with the do, I would say, is for people to really understand that you are not what happened to you.
Right.
For those who experience shame as a result of something or someone inflicting harm upon them, you are not what happened to you.
Yeah.
All right. So understand that first and foremost as a foundational principle.
I love it.
So next is to talk about it if you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, depending on what happened, what that shame is about. If you have someone that you can talk to, always take that as an avenue. But even a step before that, maybe just write about it. Get whatever you're thinking and feeling, journal.
So before you can talk about it, maybe just write it down.
Yeah.
At least you're starting to express it externally a little bit.
Absolutely.
I love that. You know, I'm going to, as long as we're being vulnerable, a few weeks ago, I was up in San Francisco and I went out with a couple of my sisters to dinner and I talked about how I had just been volunteering down in San Quentin. And I talked about guilt and shame. I was trying to explain to them. And I said, well, an example would be when I had heart surgery. And one of my sisters said, oh, that was years ago. Why are you complaining about that? That told me you got to be careful who you share this stuff with.
Yeah.
But you do need to find people you can talk to.
Absolutely. If you share it with the wrong person, they can actually re-traumatize you.
Okay. Good point.
So
yeah, beautiful. Okay. So when you talk about it, like I'm talking about it now, I'm still triggered, but I don't, at least I can talk about it. I used to hold it in for a long time, and you're talking about your triggers of where's that next meal going to come from? That's tough. That's tough. But does that kind of relieve the pressure for you?
It absolutely relieves the pressure. The more you talk about it, it's like releasing the grip that shame has on you. It still triggers you. It still activates you.
Right.
But it no longer controls you.
Right.
And shame has a way of kind of muffling or don't want us to talk about it. As long as we don't talk about it, it continues to have you bound.
Yeah. And what's interesting is we're talking, in front of everyone about something that triggered you, something that triggered me.
Yeah.
But the neat thing is going through this process, we can talk about it and we're not doing it. It's not, it's not wrecking our lives in some way.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like here's the word here. We're both under control.
Yeah.
We still feel the emotions, but we have control around the situation.
Absolutely. And I think part of the control exists now because I'm familiar with the person I'm talking to.
Right.
And so I can be vulnerable because really that's what it's about. When you're starting to open up and talk about shameful things, you are really allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open to being hurt by someone.
Yeah.
But if that trust element is there,
right,
then it's a safe place to do so.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't understand shame. They think that something happened. I was 8 or 9 when it happened. Just get over it.
Yeah.
Guilt, you can get over guilt relatively quickly. Shame, not so easy.
Okay. And then, I know you know me, we enjoy life.
To the fullest.
We got the guilt, we got the shame, but by going through this process, you can enjoy life.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to do. We want to resolve unprocessed trauma. This is how it's done. The steps are pretty simple, but I think this conversation is one of the most powerful, important messages every person on planet Earth needs to hear.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would add just is adhere at the enjoy. The difference is shame is no longer holding me. I'm holding it.
I love that. I'm still learning from it. So I appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for watching. Make sure on this episode you like it, you share it, you talk about it, because that resolves unprocessed trauma. That is the world's biggest problem. And this is the singular most powerful tool I've ever seen. So we'll see you next time.